Hello and welcome to your lecture on the limbic system. The limbic system. So this lecture was meant to be part of the white matter in the cerebrum and limbic system lecture, but since we are doing online lectures, I thought this is an opportunity to cut our lectures into bite-sized chunks and organize them into topics, individual topics that can be viewed at any time at your own convenience, and I think that is more conducive to some more natural learning. Since the previous section of the lecture was admittedly quite long, I will try to keep this section as short as possible, but we will still go through all the main parts of the limbic system that you need to know. Now, in order to fully appreciate the limbic system, first thing we need to do is rotate this brain, because the limbic system is primarily, at least the cortical limbic system, deals with the medial surface of the brain. And in fact, the word limbic stems from the word limbus, which literally means the border of a structure. And when I say border, I mean this C-shaped, or roughly C-shaped limb or border around the corpus callosum and down there. So that's the general area that we're focusing on when we speak about the limbic system. And in the cortex, there are several areas that are mainly thought about to be comprising the limbic system. And so let's talk about these cortical areas first. We have, let's change some colors so that we're more interesting. So we have this area here, which is the parahippocampal gyrus, and there's the hippocampal formation somewhere in there, so we have that. And then we have a continuation over here, which is the cingulate gyrus. That's another part of the limbic system in the cortex. And then, of course, we have the favorite among psychologists, which is the parts of the prefrontal cortex. Right? So those are the primary cortical regions of the limbic system. Now, before we continue, I'd like to say that the limbic system is a bit of a controversial system because, well, it's steeped in quite a bit of history, and people cannot quite agree what the limbic system is, what the limbic system does, and even what structures fully form the limbic system. Now, there are some structures, most of the ones I'm going to be talking about today, which are unambiguously part of the limbic system. However, there is still some debate. Now, most of you would know the limbic system as being synonymous with the emotional system in the brain, and many emotion researchers will actually be quite upset with that definition, because not only does the limbic system contain structures whose primary function is not necessarily emotional. So, for example, the hippocampus has very clear memory functions. It is very clearly involved in episodic memory. In fact, this is a slight tangent. I always like tangents in my lectures. I don't know. Some people hate them, some people love them. But it's a little tangent. There's a very famous patient who's since died fairly recently, actually. His name is H.M., or actually now his name was revealed to be Henry Molaison. So this is him. This is Henry Molaison, and he had his bilateral hippocampi removed due to epilepsy surgery, and it was found that he had an inability to form to form long-term memories, much like the main character in the movie Memento. So if you want to have a night in, watch a movie, and learn some neuroscience, then watch some Memento. But in any case, the hippocampus, which is part of the hippocampus, is part of the limbic system, is not necessarily an emotional structure. There are also some structures that, while they do have an emotional component, they're not exclusively emotional. So an example of that would be the amygdala. And while the amygdala is known to be involved in emotions, particularly in fear, it is not a structure that does exclusively fear. So I don't want you to think that the limbic system is synonymous with an emotional system. So we spoke about the cortical system, and now we will discuss the other parts of the limbic system. So let's erase what we have here. Okay, there we go. And let us, that's fun. Let us draw that. So we have our limbic system, which we divide into two components. The first one is cortical. And we've already spoken about the cortical components. So what's left is the non-cortical. Right? And so let's free up some more space over here. Let's free up some space. And we can talk about the non-cortical structures. And again, we're going to split the non-cortical structures into two. We have the telencephalic structures, and the diencephalic plus mesencephalic. Okay, so so the telencephalic, you remember the telencephalon is the same embryological structure that the cortex arises from, but the cortex is not the only telencephalic structure, and so we have structures such as the amygdala, which is a very important structure in the limbic system, the basal nuclei or basal ganglia, the basal forebrain, and the septal nuclei. And the diencephalic and mesencephalic structures include parts of the thalamus and some parts of the midbrain.